All right, again, John Marvin, Yakama Nation Fisheries, presenting the Tieton River Restoration Site 4. I think this was another one that was surfboard funded designs under 1914-47.
Yeah, we just need to, oh, did that work?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so Tieton River Site number 4, sitting at Cheese, the Y, about 4.2 miles up on the Tieton River.
Oh, no, it's working perfect.
So Tieton River. Been hammered pretty good. Yakama Tieton diversion 1910, the Tieton Dam in 1925, historic floodplain and riparian thinning, and then the construction of SR-12 in the 1950s. So Tieton Dam, as we all know, dams do horrible, horrible things to rivers. Upside down hydrography, flip-flop irrigation in the late summer. So yeah, the flip-flop is its flood season of sorts. They cut off sediment, just fundamental fluvial geomorphology, reduced sediment, channel incision, altered flow regime, increased transport. So the Tieton River is basically a bunch of cobbles, boulders, very small pockets, sort of spawning gravel, very small. So this is actually a picture of the Tieton River right down from the library. So the floodplain and riparian thinning is real. This loss of spawning gravels basically just does a bunch of bad stuff to rivers. SR-12 right here cuts through the floodplain in all sorts of different places, cutting off side channels and floodplain habitat. So summary, channel confinement, lack of spawning sediments, wood, flow regulation, just tons of disconnected floodplains, increased transport capacity, basically blew out most of the spawning gravels. It's pretty simple, mostly single channel. There's kind of some island systems, but really lacks a lot of pools, cover, and substrate for spawning. That's why in the recovery plan, basically they said, don't worry about the Tieton. Triage, Tieton's dead, other than it's identified Oak Creek, and then it kind of the vicinity of Oak Creek. But Yakama Nation in the VSP basically went out and tracked steelhead. Like, where's steelhead going? Where are they spawning? Because we don't really understand very well what they're doing, where they're going. Found, ironically enough, that there's a lot of steelhead in the Tieton River, more than anybody ever would have thought. And Chris Fredrickson, which is one of the main authors and lead scientists for the VSP program, called it the cornerstone of the Natchez population. This is kind of some of the numbers, spawners. I got some better slides for that. So this is the VSP. These are not reds. These are just track locations of steelhead in 2012. Steelhead. So you can see here a whole bunch of steelhead in the Tieton River. Here's the kind of numbers for 2012. Using it up and down, a lot, they'll basically go up to the dam and bang their heads in the dam, and then there's not a lot, even less spawning habitat in the upper Tieton because of the dam, so there's not a lot of spawning sediments down there. A lot of them are spawning kind of the lower 6 miles, basically Bear Creek downstream. And just kind of some of these, the distribution, these are kilometers, crazy scientists, kind of in the lower sections. Mostly do the spawning gravel tree. So in 2016, when Chris Fredrickson said, "Hey John, why aren't you guys working the Tieton?" I'm like, "Why would we be working the Tieton? There's no steelhead out there." He's like, "Yes, there are." Okay, well, let's do it. So 2016, we hired NSD to do an assessment for us, looking at existing conditions, living factors, and potential restoration opportunities in the lower 6 miles, so pretty much on the Oak Creek wildlife area, and we got paid to go rafting one day. It was pretty fun. So summary, yeah, it's hammered. They did identify 13 restoration opportunities. 7 of those were considered a high priority. They got a little more further analysis. If we did all 13, we could reconnect over 3 miles of side channels. Install a bunch of wood structures and other, structures, restore 47 acres of riparian veg and 35 acres of floodplain. That's if we did all of them. Or is it the 7? I don't remember, sorry. Basically a map of the reaches. And so these are the different restoration opportunities. All the way down to the mouth. So this is site number 4. Hence the biggest polygon there. And then number 4, we picked number 4 because it had the biggest bang for the buck. We figured if we're gonna do one, might as well do the coolest one and see what happens. And I'm gonna point out here, so this was in 2016. At the time when the engineer's estimate of 725 to 950, we were like, so expensive. And it's actually within that range. And this, 8 years later. So this was the conceptual from the assessment. Initially, we were contemplating 3 different inlets to access a relic side channel through the grant and the design grant through the surfboard, and that got narrowed down to 1 as a cost benefit analysis, so that those numbers aren't accurate anymore. Kind of just the site here, so there's Highway 12. There's the kind of the Tieton Trail access site where there's a footbridge across the wonky cardboard one, not the nice suspension one. And there's the Tieton Trail kind of here. I got some better pictures of the side channel. Historic picture from 49. And so here's the elevation model. So this is the side channel that we are accessing. There is some backwater down here. There's some standing water, wetlands in the lower section. Basically, so this is creating, excavating the side channel to re-access this feature right here. As part of the assessment, we did some habitat suitability analysis, indexing analysis. Again, existing conditions and proposed conditions and what sort of habitat we're gonna get out of this project. These are kind of small, sorry. So basically existing, proposed, the change, for Omicus. This one is, this is depth, so this is velocity. So here's the existing condition. It's raging through here at, what flow this is. I think it's cut off on the bottom, sorry. I think this is a 2-year flow. So 2-year flow stays pretty much in the channel and it's rocking and rolling. There's no off-channel refuge for the Omicus to get out of this fire hose. So here's the project, creating a side channel, proposed condition and the change. So creating all of this off-channel habitat here. Same with the depth. Design funded, so basically the goal of the project is improving steelhead spawning and rearing. Basically boulder riffle and engineered log jam, and then excavating to access that relic side channel. Create over a half mile of new side channel habitat for Omicus. Okay, so to do that, so we have to excavate 880 feet to access that relic side channel. So an increase of almost a half mile. So the boulder riffle, engineered log jam. So that excavated material, we're gonna sort it and use. Some will go in the engineered log jam, some will go in the boulder riffle. What's left over, what they estimate to be about 1,000 cubic yards. It's called a gravel nourishment barn. It's gonna be put along the main stem Tieton. So it will disperse into the river and provide more spawning habitat downstream. The boulder riffle itself will pool the water, split the flows. It will also trap spawning sediments behind it. So as the modeling show, we're gonna get almost 5 acres increased floodplain inundation, and then restore 2.9 acres of riparian habitat. So through the ESA review, there were concerns on fish stranding in the side channel, because the winter low flow can get, very low, because basically they shut off the dam, because they're storing water for irrigation. So to address that, so the side channel will not be constructed, as perennial. It's designed and constructed at, flows above 200 CFS. And this is gonna be a winter implementation. So March, or January through March, because that's the low flow period. It's gonna be easiest to get across the river and construct all this stuff in the winter low flow. So flip flop, it's very popular rafting, during that. So we did this, risk assessment, flood hazard report. Most of the commercial, rafting guides don't, float down this far. Some do, but so the Boulder Riffle itself will not create a hazard for rafting, and will not, this is not, there's a FEMA floodplain, but there's no floodway, so we've already, been working with the county and John concerns on increasing floodplains out here. There's no development. It's all in the Oak Creek Wildlife Board. Basic design report, so kind of a cartoon of what we're doing here. So excavating this channel to get into that side channel. There's some places out of the floodplain for spoils area. This is where the nourishment bar is gonna go. Here's the Boulder Riffle, and the engineered log jam goes right here. And then we have to realign the Tieton nature trail. Because it cuts right through the wetlands and right through the side channel. So we're gonna realign it to the edge of the valley. This is all in the basic design report. Bore you with detail today. So the engineered riffle, log jam, side channel excavation, nourishment bar, and the nature trail realignment. Just some of the modeling, so the existing depths, and then proposed. So we're getting a nice side channel over here that does not get wet. Existing, also not wet, now wet. Just again, at the higher velocity, no, this is velocity starting, so creating some velocity refuge. 10-year existing proposed, so a lot of the floodplain inundation is through some existing wetlands in here. So adding more water to these wetlands. Creating some backwater habitat here. The cartoon of existing, no side channel, proposed side channel. And so this kind of the upper portion where we're excavating is pretty dry, shrub steppy, ponderosa, some oaks. This runs through where it's contacting groundwater. Very thick, mature, riparian forest. Just some more of the analysis, paralysis, but basically, so these are the different, Omica sizes, little, medium, a little bit bigger. Kind of just the habitat uplift for the sizes, and then the overall uplift for all of those different, Omicas juveniles. As part of the core permitting, I'm just gonna point you to guys, it's in the application package, but we came up with a functional lift memo.
Was that already been accepted by the board?
Yes.
Great.
And I'll give a permit update when I'm almost here. Basically, it's gonna add a bunch of water to wetlands, gonna improve those wetlands, and nourishment bars providing more spawning sediment downstream, same with the Boulder Ripple. The ELJ will create some pool habitat, off-channel habitat, riverine wetlands, restored riparian zone. Basically, it's gonna do a bunch of good stuff. And I'm just gonna kind of go through some of the, just the design elements. These are the design elements that are all in the package. So we're using that parking lot. We're gonna use the nature trail to access the project. Those are the wetlands. Here's the design sheet. So the Boulder Ripple, engineered log jam, excavating side channel, moving nature trail, gravel nourishment bar. And what the log jam is gonna look like. The Boulder Ripple is gonna look like. the planting plan. And then to add, through the design process, I think it was the surfboard technical group, because we weren't proposing to put any roughness in the excavated channel, because we don't want it to fill in with sediment, but they're like, since access is so difficult, so we're gonna stage wood out here. Then if we need it, we can use our habitat crew to drag it into the channel if necessary. If not necessary, it will just provide some organic matter at the plain roughness. And it costs $800,000. Similar project on the Clallam, did some good stuff, also downstream of the dam. Questions, just permit updates through HIP, for the BPA, through ESA, through cultural, through the core 401, 404, through Department of Ecology, do everything other than I need to get my HPA. I want to do the pilot program HPA on this, which is my intent to get that here this spring, application in. So if funded, I could implement this in the winter of 2025, starting January 1. This is another one I've spent a lot of years. They take a long time. Cool, questions?
If I remember right, last year we walked the trail up there too, and was that the one that had the cliff or steep slope on the?
Yeah, on the south side, yes.
So just help me understand, if you move that channel over close to that trail, will there be a potential where that trail gets washed out? Or is there any protection that you're doing to the trail to maintain that trail over time?
Yes, some of the spoils from the channel excavation will be used to protect the trail. The trail will get wet in a 100-year flow event. But I mean, it's on for Fish and Wildlife's land. They've been a partner in the design of it. They're okay. It gets wet now. Basically, it goes through, well, doesn't get wet from flooding because it doesn't flood over there, but it goes through the wetlands, existing wetlands through there. So they're comfortable with moving the trail out if it gets wet. Although the Tieton doesn't really flood, it doesn't really get a 100-year flood, just because, mostly because of the dam. It has very few tributaries, you know, Wildcat, Bear Creek, I think they're the two named ones. Pretty small tributaries, doesn't really flood very, unfortunately. It's flooded is the problem.
What's the nourishment like?
It is steelhead spawning gravels. So they're gonna, when they dig the side channel, they're gonna sort, you know, the fines out, and then the boulders and rocks are gonna be used in the engineered boulder riffle. Then they're gonna sort out all these steelhead size spawning gravels, and then that's gonna be basically, so we're gonna do it at low flow, so we're not putting rocks in the water. Or doesn't like to put, well, it's more difficult when you put rocks in water, so we're gonna put it at the low flow, not in water. And then when we come up through probably flip flop, they'll get inundated and then sorted downstream to create hopefully pockets of spawning.
Next person, just jump in.
This is in the normal surfboard round, right? Not.
Yeah, not targeted. This is normal circuit.
How come you're not targeting this? Is it just the funding level?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's at 800,000 now. I mean, I could fetch the numbers and for
You mean do more restoration?
inflation, no,
You said
Yeah.
the cardboard bridge is gonna be the access, is that during the construction or year round?
no, I mean, I was just kind of orientating people
Yeah.
of the location. No, we're not using the plywood. We're using that parking lot, and then they're gonna build a temporary bridge.
So if you build a permanent bridge, that costs you an extra 200,000.
We don't want a permanent bridge.
That's more permitting.
Yeah. I don't want to, we don't want to maintain it. But there's no reason, yeah.
It gets you into targeted.
And this is very much a real discussion and one that we can, you know, John can continue to consider through June. After the June application, it should be locked in. And there are advantages to the regular from a sponsor perspective. It's known money in September versus a more speculative process that drags out. The nice thing about the target, it is, if you compete well at the state, you got that bigger pot.
Well, and part of where I'm coming from is typically when we look at a project after the first year and the project's largely the same, we're usually rolling over the scores, at least at the tag level. We're usually just keeping the score. And, you know, the score, the project, at least the way I would put it qualitatively, is scored as a decent project, but not, you know, it just hasn't risen to that getting into the money yet. So that's part of why I was thinking about targeted is that same dynamic may, I don't know, but you know, it could happen again.
I guess. Since we have the assessment and we've identified numerous other projects, I could roll it into a targeted funding construction of this one and design and maybe construction of some of the other ones. That just occurred to me.
And one possibility is to do a separate application for each and withdraw one when you get to a point of knowing where things are headed. And this is a new game for us, so that's something we want to talk about, but it could be considered. You can't fund a project, the same elements of a project with both pots of money. But you could certainly run this application and run one that included, say, design work in the targeted until you see how things rank out.
Try to remember the wording in the targeted review criteria, but it does talk about scope and scale.
Yeah.
How the funding can accelerate.
When does the targeted funding become available?
It will depend. If the CCA is maintained and if the project is in the top 25 million at the state level, it'd be available in January. Otherwise, it would be at the whim of the legislature, and if the legislature choose to fund the list far enough down to hit a project, you'd likely get the legislature could start July 1st, but you wouldn't have a contract until August or September likely,
And the latter is
of
more,
2025.
more likely.
No. There's a lot more certainty to surfboard. You know where you rank and you know where the funding is by this July or this August. The targeted, you're gonna be crossing your fingers until April of 2025. Unless you're really lucky and get the January.
Can he have both in there and then we rank them? And then he decides to pull one or leave one, or does he have to decide before the June time?
I believe ultimately we'd have to choose just before we submitted it to Surfboard in August. And Elizabeth, feel free to pipe in. This is new ground for all of us, and we can keep talking about this offline too, because it's more grant strategy than review.
Speaking of, Elizabeth asked me to share, you could add AA and E. For project management, add a contingency and also add riparian maintenance, and that would get you over 1 million. But she says you wouldn't know about funding until next session is complete.
Another question, too, since we're talking about funding, your engineering, the quote for construction, was that last year or this year, or how current is it?
I got it in October of 23.
23, and do they put contingency on that?
Yes, there is contingency in there, and then actually I had them check it again before I submitted it for this, and they felt that it was still accurate.
Yeah, because
But no, it doesn't.
2025, with gas prices always driving construction too as well, and cost of things.
Yeah, I believe there is a kind of a percent kind of built in there, but yeah, I'm not sure if there's contingency would be added.
Other questions? Quick question for the group before you escape, John. This was reviewed. Most people here have been out on site. This was cleared by the state review panel, so even though we have new review panel members, we'll talk about that in our wrap up. They don't technically need to see it. There are no fundamental changes to the project since last year, right?
Yeah.
So you'll have the option of, do we just use last year's scores? Are there any elements people want to revisit? Or if you wanted, you could rescore. We've typically used last year in a quick review. And then we'd also, yeah, just asking if people think that it needs a site visit or if we should save the time for other sites.
We saw elk at this one last year.
Yeah.
No, it's a great site to go to. I love it.
Well, the nice night down
just
the
don't know
river.
we need to do it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say we need to do it again.
Right.
How many new folks do
Oh,
we have?
yeah. It's an eventful day.
Who hasn't been out on this site?
I was gonna say, do we got any folks that want
Okay,
to?
Xavier and Jeff.
I
Okay.
think it's fairly easily accessible too. So
Yeah.
hopefully-
We could definitely also put together a self-tour guide.
Yeah, it is. It's just like a mile hike to get to it.
It's hard to do in a rush day. It is a beautiful thing to do in probably 3 weeks when the flowers there.
And a rattlesnake.
That's right.
Right.
Elizabeth added that, John, you added details to the application question responses, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for anyone who reviewed this in past years, you might want to take another look at the application.
Yeah, I did add more detail and kind of made it consistent with my other applications, so they similarity. Yes.
How long will the project like this take to complete?
Did you
I
stop
think it'll take,
recording?
well, the actual construction component,
I will, yeah.
maybe a month. Cause it's actually fairly simple, just digging a channel, putting some rocks in the river, putting in wood. The planting is gonna be a little more difficult depending on the winter that we have, cause it's, the in-water work is, January to the end of February, so we've got 2 months for the in-water work. But we can't have like frozen ground or anything for the planting plan, so.
Oh, was that great? It was-
We might, depending on, if we have a winter like we had this year, where we're
He
just
has
like,
control of the owl and the
Frozen.
recording now. so
in
you can-
January, we won't be planting anything. It's gonna be, probably miserable to stand up there and work on it, but, so yeah, the in-channel stuff isn't gonna take very, it's a pretty simple project.
John?
Yeah, just. She should.
Right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Put it in.